Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. This is Pamela, and you are watching Pam Entertainment TV, where we review movies, television series, and incidents in pop culture. Listen, I really want to go over and review the women of sinners, and we're going to do that right after this. Good morning, good morning, good morning, good afternoon, good afternoon, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever it is that you all are looking for. As you all come in, y'all make sure y'all hit that like button, hit that heart button on Twitter, and hit the wallet or whatever it is you hit over there at Twitch. I really would appreciate it. And it helps me in the algorithm, and it helps YouTube push my videos to the top of the screen. Now, why are we here this today? All right, let me get this right. I wanted to go over, we've been reviewing and talking about sinners, and I'm going to do a couple more videos. This is the first of the two videos. I want to talk about the women of sinners, and I do want to talk about the men of sinners. And the way I want to do it is to just go through here and really just kind of do not an intense deep dive, but just to do a deep dive nonetheless. So, again, let me present my screen. All right, here we go. Let's try this one. All right, here we go. Let's discuss the women of sinners. And if you haven't seen it, you haven't watched this movie, and you're planning on watching it and you do not want to be spoiled, I don't know what to tell you. Listen, here's your warning. If you have not seen the movie and you do not want it to be spoiled, log off now. I'm going to give you the timer. All right, if you're still here and you hadn't seen the movie, this is all on you. All right, so let's go over the women of, and I'm going over the women who had more prominent roles in this movie. And so let's talk about Miss Lola. Now, here's the thing about Miss Lola, child. Let's see if I can get my face in here. Here we go. Now, she was really one of the, as far as when we start getting into the night, she's one of the women that we're introduced to. Now, Lola is married to the KKK member, and she is visited upon by Remick, who is the vampire in the movie. She's visited upon him. He comes in, and because of his appearance. And again, and I wrote on here, being entrenched in white supremacy, she did not heed the warning, or because of the fact that the Native Americans came and they were trying to warn her that there's an evil that's running around there. And because she was so entrenched in her white supremacy, she couldn't hear that. She couldn't even, she forsaked her fight or flight because she was so entrenched in, and even if we can even say that she was having a level of enjoyment living in her white supremacy because it had afforded her a place in society. Now, she may not be, now when I say that, she may not be one of the richest people in that whole town or anything like that. However, there's a level of respectability regardless of where you stand in the social class of white people, that, I'm better than the next, I'm better than the black person that's standing around me, or any other minority around me, and so I'm going to believe everything I see and hear from white folk. And because she didn't heed the incense, uh she believed Remick was good decent white folk, because he was white. And with that in belief, she forsaked her fight or flight, and she invited evil into her home. And then once upon inviting the evil into her home, uh evil bit her, evil turned on her. And so now she no longer has a life. She's has been plagued to live in the night, to live in the dark, because you refuse to take the heed of someone who could help you. And the persons that could help you had darker skin, and you did not believe, because they had darker skin, they were evil. They could never help you. They could never be doing anything for good. And we see that because the Native American men, they were like, hey, we trying to tell you, if the, ain't no need for us to go nowhere, because no one's gonna listen to us. Peace. They chucked the deuces and went back home. And so I wanted to just kind of talk about that, and then just to see how, uh, because of being entrenched, her whole family just got demolished, And I would say this, ladies, make sure that you take heed and keep that level of fight or flight. And a lot of times it's not necessary for you to be trying to go back and forth, whatever you sense that's causing you a quake in your spirit. There's no need to go back and forth with it. The best thing to do is don't invite it into your home, close the door, or just leave. I think so many times we spend a lot of time because of feeling, yeah, we spend a lot of time trying to confront something, or to try to make some certain entities see things the way we see it. Sometimes it's not worth that. Sometimes the best thing to do, or the best way that people hear you, is to be silent and move on. Don't engage it, move on. Now, if that evil is trying to follow you, and if that evil is trying to overtake you, you do what you need to do. But basically, let it go. But don't ever lose this fight or flight. A lot of us get into a lot of situations because socially we are trained to be accommodating with our thoughts, with our labor, with our service, with our bodies, and even in our heads when we're talking about that that's not what we want to do. Uh Even though we're taught to understand that that's not okay what we want to do, this sometimes is what happens, and we get caught up in a level of chaos that we don't need to get caught up in, because of the fact that society tells us to be accommodating. But we also have to use our mind and understand that to be accommodating doesn't mean that we have to forego our fight or flight, or forego the quaking in our spirit. Okay, let's see what's going on. Hey, Hazel. I saw the movie Saturday. It was okay. I didn't understand the ending. Okay. So, my question to you, and put it down in the chat. Did you stay to the two post-credit scenes? Did you stay until after that, or did you just see the ending where Preacher Boy was in the church with his father? Let me know down in the comment. So let's talk about Miss Perline. Perline. Now, baby, she was wanting to have a good time. She was flirting with Preacher Boy, even though she was married. She was out there trying to flirt with Preacher Boy. She was the desire of Preacher Boy, and she flirted back. And like I said, she worked. She was one of the people that was working in the fields, picking cotton or whatever was in season at that point, and she just wanted to have a good time. She's married. She's a good singer. Uh, so when all the crap that went down, one of the things that you saw with her, She had a level of disbelief. She didn't know what was going on. And there's a scene in there, the garlic scene, to where I thought that she was about to get smoked by smoke, because she didn't want to eat the garlic. She didn't want to do any of those things to be able to protect herself. However, when things went down, she helped out the best way that she could, because at the end, the we realize and understand that preacher boy is what the evil wanted, and she did the best thing that she could. She fought the best way that she could uh to try to assist with preacher boy. But I don't think that she thought that the way that night ended was going to end. But I will tell you this, and this is one of those things that I think, and it's the time, and I wanted to talk about this time period. You're talking about a woman of the 1930s. There was a lot of stuff going on back then, and there was, particularly because the rights of black folks was already here, the rights of black women was also further down. So a lot of those women at that time were married, not necessarily they were married because they were just totally in love, but because it was security. There was a level of security, simply because at that time, as a woman, you were not considered to be, valuable is not the word that I want to use, but you were considered less than if you were not attached to a man, or needed a man to be able to matriculate through the world. And so that's what I see that she had. But you can tell that she also had a desire to sing. You also see that she had a desire to have a good time. Even though she was older than Preacher Boy, I don't think that she was that much older than Preacher Boy, because he was like, what, 18, 19 years old, and she probably was like 25 or 26 years old, and she's probably had been married since she was like 15, 16 years old. So again, she wanted to have her a good time. uh she was invited by Preacher Boy. I don't know who her husband is. They never did say who her husband is, but definitely I'm quite sure that he was very distraught because she didn't come home. Now let's talk about Mary. Mary, Mary, quite contrary. How does your garden grow? A lot of things going on with Mary, because we find out that she has okay. I understood that part. Let me get rid of the Hazel real quick, and I could think I can answer your question. I understood that part. It was the reason the surviving twin killed all those white men in my best part. Okay. The reason why the surviving twin did that, because he found out, you let me go back to this particular woman. This woman right here. When Remick turned her and her husband, apparently when once he turns them, they have like a hive mind, like bees, and he was able to see or understand that in the morning, that well, let me go back. You remember when the twins were standing in front of the juke joint, that what they were buying, and they were buying it from that man. The man who they were buying it from was this woman's father-in-law, and he was the grand wizard of the Ku Klux Klan. They had never intended to let Smoke and Stack keep the old mill. They never intended for them to do that. Their intent was to kill them. And they were going to do it in the morning, because what they had assumed, the people in the KKK, is that they were going to be partying all night. And if they got there at sunrise, they were going to get the people coming out of the club, and then they were going to kill them, and they definitely was going to kill Smoke and Stack. And if I don't know if you remember earlier, when Smoke and Stack were buying the mill, they went down to the floor and they was like, "What is this on the floor?" Well, that's the mill actually was a place that the KKK brought the people that they were terrorizing, and they terrorized them in that mill. So basically, Smoke made sure that they were killed because he told them, don't come back here, don't come back on my land, because he paid for it. And so that is why at the end, because he knew that he couldn't. And plus, I believe that Mary and Stack were inside the mill. That's why it was locked when the KKK came. People came and they jiggled the door. The mill was locked, and they couldn't understand why it was locked. It was locked because Smoke was literally protect his last bit of his life. He was protecting his vampire brother and his childhood friend while they were in there in the dark, because they couldn't come out in the sunlight. He was protecting them while they were in the mill. And so he was making sure that they didn't go in there, or he was making sure that the KKK did not go back into that mill. And plus, he was killing them because they were reneging on their deal. So that's why he killed them. And plus, he knew that I believe he knew he was going to die. He wanted to die because he wanted to be with Annie, and he wanted to be with his infant daughter that passed away. And that's why you saw him seeing the image of Annie, like breastfeeding the baby and telling him, you can hold the baby, because he had gotten shot. You can hold the baby if you put down that cigarette. So he went on to the afterlife with Annie and his baby. He knew that that's what he wanted to do. He definitely did not want to be turned to a vampire. So that was the explaining why that twin did what he did. But let's get back to talking about the women of Sinners. So she was a very interesting character in here. Now we find out that her mother's father was black. And so that meant that I imagine in my head, and even when you go back to that time of period, because again, we have to get out of our 2025 mindset about this and being biracial and all these little different things and how different. We have to just go back to the 1930s. If you had any drop, if any one of your parents or grandparents or great grandparents, if any one of those people were black, they considered you to be black. You couldn't go through white society. And so in that town, everybody knew who Mary's folks were. But she presented as a white woman. And she decided after Stack had left 7 years early and didn't take her with him, and he didn't come back. Her mother pretty much, I believe, made sure that she went to Arkansas. So she wasn't in Mississippi anymore. She lived in Arkansas. She had a family and a wealthy white husband in Arkansas. That's why she came home by herself, because he doesn't know her lineage. I don't believe he knew her lineage. And so she came home by herself to bury her mother. Now, while she was doing that, that's why Stack was trying to get away from her, because again, she presented as a white woman. And for a black person, and particularly a black man within that time, and again, we're talking about Jim Crow, folks was lynching left and right. They would lynch you for anything that they felt like if you were doing that was adverse to them, or just because they could. And again, we'll talk about the men of Sinners in another video. But her coming home to bury her mother, and then to see the man that she was in love with still there, and him not coming to assist her, and then her thinking in her head, this must be a sign that my mother has passed away. However, this must be a sign that my man is here and I can get my man back and we can be together. And he's like, no, 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 no. Mm-mm. You present too much like a white woman, and that might be deadly. But that he was in love with her. He did love her, but he knew that it wasn't going to be safe for her, and he knew it wasn't going to be safe for him. And also, Smoke was also probably big in that as well, because he knew that would cause for them to be unsafe, which inevitably became true. I think her desire to help Stack, and this Stack had this. He was a little money. He was all about the money, and her desire to help Stack and to help them bring in money and things like that, because she wanted to appear to be useful. Was their undoing. Now, I don't understand why they sent her outside to figure out what's going on with those white folks. Again, I think it was because of money. But again, I don't think that I think sending, I guess because she was white passing, I guess they thought that it would be she would be more apt to be able to talk to see what was going on. But again, that was pretty much the undoing. And the Remick the vampire kind of read her, and I think what he read was her loneliness and her need to be with wanting to be with Stack, but now she's married. That's not real. She really wants to be. She really wants to be with Stack, but she can't do it. There's a whole lot of stuff going on. She could not be with Stack in life, and the only way that she could be with him was in death. So her being turned as a vampire and her turning Stack, that's the only way that they were going to be able to live and ever to be together. And I think in her mind, she thought, I've turned Stack. If Stack turns his brother Smoke, and then Smoke turns Annie, we can all live together in harmony forever. Uh, uh, as vampires, but that's not the life that Annie wanted, and that's not the life that Smoke wanted. So if you watch the movie, when her and Smoke were screaming about them not kill about Smoke killing Annie, that's why they were screaming. Now, my understanding is, listen, Hazel, uh, my understanding is that if you see it, go see it in a theater, particularly if you have an IMAX theater, because it you would get the full immersiveness going on with the movie. I don't know how much you got with the with the way you watched it, but I would tell you, yeah, I would say go watch it in the movie if you can, because you would I think you would get it would things would make better. I think you could see visually, it would be more visually, it'll be pleasing. You'd be able to see, because I'm quite sure in the way that you watched it, it may have been dark, but I don't know. So we have, like I said, we talk about Mary, and Mary, like I said, she was an interesting character. Again, Stack, I felt a little way about Stack, sending her out there, but one of the things is, we'll just move on. We'll come back to Mary, but we're just going to move on for right now. And then we have Grace. Now, the interesting thing, and I think, let me see if I can pull it up on X. Cha cha cha. Give me one moment, y'all. I'm looking. I may not have saved it. I did not save it. I thought I saved it on here, but it doesn't look like I did. Dadgummit. Let me make sure. What I was looking for, that there was a young lady that did a documentary about the Chinese community in the Mississippi Delta, and doesn't look like I saved it. I thought I saved it, y'all, and I couldn't go back down my timeline over here to see it. But anyway, there was a documentary um that this lady, that she looks like a Chinese woman, had completed about the Chinese people in the Mississippi Delta, and just the information in there, because I thought I saved it, because I definitely wanted to go back and look at it. But what we find out via this movie. And one of the things that I did enjoy about Ryan Coogler is that with all of this stuff that's going on, it is a horror film. Um it is a drama. It is all these little different things. But he's also giving us history that we didn't have, and or history that because of a lot of times, well, just be very clear, if it wasn't passed down orally, it was not going to be taught in schools, because again, the way the school systems and things like that, and the way they want to be able to teach American history, it is a whitewashing of it, instead of just telling the history as it unfolded. Again, uh that's a whole political thing, and I'm not getting into that. But one of the things I want to talk about, because this particular character, uh even though Mary's character was the one that brought the evil into, as best she brought the evil into the juke joint, and she initiated it. Grace kind of finished it off, and got everything popping, because everybody was trying to hold off until the daytime. And anyway, let's just figure. So she her in her community, because she was Chinese, she was the grocer. So you remember in the movie, there was a store for the whites, and then there was a store for the black folks. So they were able to serve both communities, but they weren't really entrenched or in part of each one of those communities. So they can move, like I said, they can profit and move back and forth in between those communities, but they had their insular community. And because of that, she loved her family above all. That's where her and her family, they spoke their Chinese. They were insular. And once she found out that her man had been turned, it was almost like she felt like there was nothing else for her to live for. The When Remick spoke to her in her native language, because again, you remember I talked about that hive mind. Once they turned Bo, he was able to speak Chinese, and he was speaking to her and being very salacious and stuff like that with her. you know she knew at that point that her husband wasn't there, and she was scared for her child. She was scared that they were going to go and see her child. And also too, she wanted to make sure, because again, when I talk about this next person, who had the when Annie was telling them how, what they needed to do to get rid of them, her main goal was to make sure that she made sure that her husband didn't live his life as a vampire. And so again, because she was the one that in it that with because she felt like she wasn't, and plus there was some guilt, because when all of this popped off, she sent her husband out there to get the car because she was ready to go. She didn't want to stay there. She sent him out. And I think she had a level of guilt because she sent him out there. But if they had all stayed inside, they may have been able to formulate something so that they could, because as long as they didn't invite them into that, she invited them in, yes. When because she was like, she said, I think she wanted to, I think she said, come in, motherfucker, or something. She said something. And once they heard that, that was the invite to come in. And that's why they all came in, and and that's how Annie died, Perlene died, all of these people died, and she died as well. And the only person that the only vampire that she was concerned about was her husband. She wanted to make sure, and she ended up burning up and dying in that way. But this is how they came in. And when I initially saw that, I felt some kind of way. When I tell y'all, I felt some kind of way. But but now when you sit down and you think through a different lens, I kind of understand why she did it. However, she should have conferred with everybody else to see if that was something that she wanted to do. Because in all honesty, if she was going to do that, and if she was just going to focus in on her husband, she could have gone outside and done that herself. There was no need for anybody else to get involved with that, because at that point we realized that the main person that everybody was trying to get to was Preacher Boy. So she could have done that, but she invited a lot of that stuff to happen. And then I want to get to Annie. Now, Annie has a special place in my heart. Now, shout out to Masaku, and I just want to kind of focus in her on just a little bit, and then we're gonna go ahead and end this out. But Annie was very comfortable in her spirituality. She wasn't a religious person. She didn't practice Christianity, but she practiced the spirituality that was passed down to her from her family and from the motherland. And they mixed it and matched it the way that they needed to do. She had a very keen eye and the knowledge of the evil that they faced, because at first she thought it was just ghosts, and there was a way that you figured out how to deal with the ghost. But once you realized that Stack, he was in there dead, everybody saw him die, and then he came back to life, she realized that they were dealing with vampires, and she was able to provide knowledge to them. And what was more interesting to me is you would have thought at first that they people would have just kind of brushed her off, but I think because of the fact that of her relationship with Smoke, he didn't believe in all of that, but he believed in her. So if she said that something was going on, that's what was going on. She had a lot of wisdom, she had a lot of courage, and she was very nurturing, right? We do find out that she did lose a child. And this is why she's endearing to me. Because one of the things, and I thank Ryan Coogler for this, is I saw a couple of tweets. And I should have pulled them up and put them in here. But these were some of but one of the tweets tweets, and I'll read this one down here. Let me make this bigger so that you all can see it. How about that? All right. So the tweet that's down on the Bible, and down at the Bible, down on the bottom, it says, "People saying that they thought Annie from Sinners was Smoke's mother really proves that people don't see full-figured dark black women as love interests. From the moment she stepped outside while he was at their baby's grave, you could feel the intimacy be so serious." And there was a lot of think pieces, and I know that I saw some of the things on TikTok, how everybody was like, well, yeah, we thought that she was his mama. I don't know why she couldn't be his mama. They could have hired somebody else to play that role. And I thought that this was a wonderful thing that Ryan Coogler did, because there was a lot of first and things that you saw. And this is one of the things that we would see. We spend a lot of time in our society regulating people to certain roles, because everyone thought that not everyone, but there was a lot of people that thought that she was Smoke's mom. And it never occurred to them that she was Smoke's wife. It never occurred to them because of physically how she looked. And and on television and film or anything, and it didn't even doesn't even matter the racial makeup that you make. If you are a heavier set woman, people don't think that, moviegoers cannot process the fact that a woman that looks like her, with her build and her body shape, that she could be someone's interest. However, what I tell everybody, you need to get off of TikTok, get off of Instagram, get off of X, and go outside out here in the real world. You would be surprised. These same women who act like they can't believe this, these are the women that are walking around here now, can't understand why this man is with this heavier set woman, why this other man is with this woman, da 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 da. We're in the real world. Her body type, her thing is desired, is considered to be desirable. And so I was glad for that to be seen on film. Now, a lot of people were like, oh, well, it seemed awkward. It was awkward because it's probably the first time you've ever seen something like that. Now, if you get me to tell it, because a lot of our mothers and things like that are not size zeros. We've got women in our family who are mothers that are probably a size 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, and possibly 20, that look like her, and they have husbands and they have children and all of these things. And the top tweet says Annie was beautiful. Women of her ilk are not often the main object of affection for the sexy protagonists in movies like this. I truly love the ilk was celebrated for back of better turn in this movie. I hope this tweet isn't as lusty as it sounds. You'll see in Sinners. So you had people appreciating that, and you also had people that found this to be negative. And I thought that that was a wonderful thing to see someone with her body type, with her skin color being desired. I also, Ryan did an interesting thing in this movie. He did not pit the religious with the spirituality. He did not pit them together as if they were fighting against each other. One was better than the other, or one was or anything. He pitted like this is what's going on in the world. There's a place for all of this stuff, and I thought that that was a very interesting thing. Now, I do understand there are some people in the Christian faith. This thing was demonic. Well, I can't understand if you believe those things while you were watching a movie called Sinners. I can't understand that, but that's neither here nor there for me. I'm, go watch the movie. You get what you can out of it. But all of that to say is this: these are the women of Sinners. These is how I have seen them in Sinners. This is what I have gleaned from these women in Sinners. If I would be remiss if I didn't go over, we talked about the women in the movie Sinners. I do want to talk about the women behind the scenes. I saw this tweet by All Things Movies that says it's cool that Coogler has made 5 feature films and all of his cinematographers have been women. So we have Rachel Morrison from Fruitville Station and Black Panther. We have, I think that's Maurice Alberti for Creed. And we have Autumn Durald Arkapow for Wakanda Forever and for Sinners. So, like I said, I would be remiss if I did not go ahead and speak and talk about some of those women behind the scenes. And here we have a beautiful picture. The only person that we're lacking here is the first woman that what I spoke of in Sinners. But here's a beautiful picture of all the women of Sinners. They're all beautiful women. Uh, did wonderfully. All of these actresses, all the women who acted within this movie did a great job. I thought the movie, again, I enjoyed the movie. I enjoyed the fact that it was genre bending. It is what you believe it is. If you want it to be a horror movie, it was a horror movie. If you want it to be a drama, it was a drama. If you want it to be a love story, it was a love story. It was all these different things. So what do you all think? What did y'all think about the women of Sinners? Oh, you're so welcome. I will be doing that breakdown for the men. It'll probably, I don't want to give you a time frame, but it's going to be this week. I've got to, I got to get my little PowerPoint together and then we'll go ahead and get it done. But these are the women of Sinners. Again, let me get back here. These are the women of Sinners. These are the women that I've gone over. Tell me what y'all think. Y'all can put it down in the comments. Thank you all so much for listening to my view of the women of Sinners and why I enjoyed the women. I enjoyed what they brought to the table in terms of this movie. Again, I'll be going over the men of Sinners, and we will discuss them in those roles at a later date. All right, people. We do this every week. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Please share this video if you care. Y'all, please tell a friend, tell a kin, tell a coworker, tell that heifer that you can't stand that I'm over here making these videos. And as always, people, bye-bye.